Today's episode is powered by HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. As they stand in solidarity with the Black community and everyone fighting for racial and food justice, HelloFresh is proud to support Black voices and to affirm that Black lives matter today and every day.
Full Service Radio is proudly supported and hosted by Simplecast, the easiest way for a podcast creator to publish and distribute audio on the internet. For more information, visit simplecast.com.
Peace and welcome to the Edible Activist Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa L. Jones, broadcasting live from the lobby of the Line, D.C. On this show, you hear from the voices of dynamic Black people and people of color in the agriculture, food justice, and healing space as they share empowering food narratives and perspectives that stem from the land, all while exemplifying the spirit of activism in their own edible way. Let's get started. Peace and welcome to the Edible Activist Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa L. Jones, broadcasting on Full Service Radio. So for today's show, I have a dynamic guest, Marilyn Griffin. She is an educator at heart and by trade who spent 9 years living in New York City with 40 of her best friends, aka her plants. Marilyn is now back in her hometown of Detroit, Michigan, where she has started Griffin Gardens. We'll talk about what led her back to Motor City and the vision she has for bringing more beauty, health, and awareness to her Detroit community. Marilyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited, girlfriend. I have been, like with all the other folks who I just am a fan of, stalking your every move, like you just been doing some wonderful work. And I love how relationships just, organically form via social media, which can be a weird space because, you've been a super supporter of this platform, this podcast. And that's how we know one another. We haven't even met in person, but one day, very soon, when we are kind of close to out of this mess, which will probably never be out of this mess, we will meet. So I'm honored. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your voice today.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to hop into it, right? So we got a couple things in common, Marilyn. So, well, you're from Detroit. I'm not from Detroit, but everybody should know, and they should know by now, that it's one of my favorite cities. Shout out to the D and all of my homies, activists, growers out there. There's so many of y'all. Shout out to Detroit. So I love Detroit. You're from Detroit. I used to live in Harlem. You used to live in Harlem. So we got that. I know about the tiny apartments in New York City. Okay. I probably moved like 3 or 4 times in New York, but I was just mesmerized or just, I laughed when I read when I was on your Instagram page, like 40 plants, like she went from 40 plants in her apartment to where you are now with your garden, right? So let's start. I want to assume that we're talking like, mini succulents on up to snake plants, but I ain't going to make that assumption, but I'm sure they were your best friends. But anyway, so let's have you always been into plants? Like, how did that start?
That is a really good question. For the first time I remember having plants, actually, I tried to start gardening. This was before I moved to New York. So this was like 2009, 2010, around that time. And my dad, he had a small garden in the backyard. I mean, I just remember him growing like tomatoes. I remember one year he grew eggplants, and I remember him having sunflowers. But it wasn't anything big. It wasn't anything I was ever interested in. But when my parents, they moved to another house about maybe like a mile or 2 away, I was living in the house that we grew up in. And so I was like, you know what, let me plant a garden. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from because that was a while ago. But I do remember I was growing zucchini, and I don't remember actually growing zucchini. I just remember the little tendrils that sprout out. and how they just wrapped themselves around anything that was near it. Like that's the memory I have because I was in like awe seeing that, like, wow, nature is actually just doing its own job. It's figuring out a way to, support itself. And after that, I moved to New York. So I don't even know what became of that little garden because then my sister moved in. Nothing I guess ever happened because I didn't hear anything about it. But that's my first memory of growing something.
Wow. I just had this like image in my mind. I love seeing like, especially like Black girls garden and, these like phenomenal Black women surrounded by all these plants and succulents. And when I saw that, I was just like, I see Marilyn surrounded by all these plants and just like in awe in her zone, right? In her zone. Well, that's wonderful. You already kind of like had a start to growing something. And I'm really just excited to just walk along this journey with you and just learn, how you came to the space now where you started Griffin Gardens. And I definitely wanted to tap into, you recently moved back to Detroit. And even when you moved back to Detroit, and I don't know if you did dove into your genealogy prior to Detroit and once you got there, but you said like, listen, Detroit is home and this is where I need to be. And there is no place like home. There really isn't. And I know that when you start, because I'm in this space too now, right, where I've been like tapping and digging into my roots. And I'm like, this is home, even though I didn't, wasn't raised in Mississippi, like it's home because there's just so many obviously connections and my family lineage is there. But you said like, I needed to be home. And so once you made that decision to like, just, anchor yourself back in Detroit, this garden started. But I want to definitely just explore, a bit of your journey and diving into your genealogy and just what that has meant to you. And, again, just making that decision like, no, I need to be here where my roots are.
Yeah, I mean, so this entire experience over the last year or so has been like divine intervention. None of the things that happened within the last year or so was planned. I wasn't even thinking about it all. I mean, I think that's a lot of people's stories right now. Things that they're getting into is like because of COVID, they're just surprising themselves at all the things that they are doing. But I got into my genealogy, I would say the beginning of 2019. So my best friend, Jamia Richmond Edwards, she actually lives in the DMV area. And
Jamia?
Yes.
Jamia, the artist, the bomb artist? Yes.
That's the
Shout out to Jeff Edwards, my homie. Oh gosh, small world. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay,
Yeah.
proceed. Who are also Jackson State alum, Jackson State University alum.
Okay, all right. So Jamia, she actually started tracing her genealogy, I believe, the year prior. I think like 2018, I would say. It may have been before then, but I know it had been like over a year or a full year before I started. And so she started tracing her genealogy, and I mean, she was just so amazed, shocked and excited about all the information that she was learning about, just some things as far as her indigenous roots within her family that she was familiar with, but she didn't know the full extent. So once she started seeing all this information, she was sharing it with me every day. And I just, at that point, that moment in my life, I wasn't receptive to it. I mean, I was interested, but it wasn't that time for me. I feel like we all kind of get into things different times than different people. And it just really depends on what's happening in our life, but I wasn't ready. But Jamia was not moved. She was not swayed. She continuously, every day, and we laugh about this all the time, she was on me. Like, every day, every week, like, nah, you gotta do this research. You gotta find out. I'm finding out this, and I can help you. And it felt like a full year of her just all the time trying to get me to do this. And I believe it was like the beginning of 2019, and I had a week off from work. It was our February break. And I don't know what it was it was like a light that went off. And I was like, you know what? Why don't you go on Ancestry and just look up some stuff? Jamia had already kind of gave me the tools and kind of like the idea of like where to look. So I was like, okay, let me go ahead and look up something. So I put in my mom's name, and a flight manifest from 1957 going to Japan had my grandmother's name, my great-grandmother's name on it. And I was like, wait. So my mom was born in Japan. Because,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, she's not Japanese or anything like that. It was just her step-grandfather was in the service. So they were stationed there.
Gotcha.
So they were going to meet him over there, and my grandmother was pregnant with my mom at the time. So she was born there, but she was only there until she was like 3 months old. So when I saw that flight manifest, I was like, wait, they have this on record? Like, I can find information like this online? And that was it. After that, it was just, I mean, that entire week, I was up to like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, just looking through documents, census records, birth certificates, all this information that I had no idea actually existed. I just felt like growing up, it was always that narrative that like there's no documents for Black folks. Like you came here from Africa and that's it.
That's it. That's it. Exactly.
Like there's no records for you all. None. And so I was like, wait, have they been lying to us? All this time?
Well, yes. Yeah.
I mean, I can't even explain the feeling. I mean, I just remember calling Jamia, like, girl, I'm seeing my grandparents and great-grandparents and great-grandparents. They was born in 1800. I'm seeing, their marriage certificate. How? I was blown away. It was one of those things that I could not stop looking at. I could not stop researching. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to sleep. I didn't want to eat. I was just literally on Ancestry.com looking through all of these documents, just seeing history, seeing my history. It's
that
is described.
That is, well, I would have to say, shameless plug. I've had Jeff Edwards on my show a few times. Go holler back at some of those episodes, y'all. He is phenomenal. And I remember Jeff told me, he said to me, to the audience, at all Black people, indigenous folks, he said the only history that us Black folks should be mainly concerned about is our genealogy, our family history. And when I tell you, ever since then, I said, Jeff, say less.
Yeah.
Say less. I mean, we have talked about, going, and even in respects to like growing food and agriculture and just, pulling that all together. He's like, Melissa, what did your grandmother eat? What did her mom eat? And what, like, just go and just connecting those dots. And, we talk about DNA and there's like, eating for your DNA, like all of it ties together. And going back to like search those records and, it's part of like this big puzzle. Right. And I remember, and they are not playing any games because I know, because Jeff has told me on countless, like, no, we got pictures, we got this, we got that. They are on it. And so, I mean, you have just set another fire underneath these toes over here, because I have started, but I'm not as deep as y'all, but that just excites me. And have you been journaling during that process too? I'm just curious, have you just been, journaling and just like what, how have you been just other than seeing those records, like, are you documenting in any other capacity as well or in any other way?
Yeah, I'm not journaling. I have like a million journals that I start. The idea is exciting to crack open a brand new journal and start that first page, but I haven't been successful in completing one since I was like younger. But I have a binder, and so I have it separated between like my paternal side, and then I have I have all of the census records along with the marriage certificates and the pictures and things like that in the binder. Like that's how I've been documented. So like when I'll go visit, family, I'll take it with them, and just the conversations around the things that I've come across are just like one example. I mean, it's obviously not something to brag on, but it's something to share because I found something out about my great grandfather that even his children didn't know about. And so I was looking, getting census records, and I was looking up my great grandfather, and like I'm trying to think what word came up. Something that had to do with like it wasn't prison, but it was something like that. I forget the word that came up. And I was like, wait, for the census? Like inmate or something like that. For his identification, it said inmate. I was like, wait.
Wow.
I don't know if that's him, right? Because it's just you put in the names in when you look for the census under ancestry, and they will just pull everyone that has that name. His name was Harrison Bundy. There could have been plenty of other Harrison Bundys, and so I contacted. So they lived in Columbus, Ohio. That's where my family, when they left Georgia, they migrated to my dad's side of the family. They migrated to Columbus, Ohio. And so I contacted this museum that holds all these records in actually Columbus, Ohio, and they actually have pictures of the inmates up until I think it starts at like the late 1800s or even 1900s. So I was like, wait, what if I can get the picture? I was like, they ain't gonna have no picture of him. That's what I'm thinking. So I put in for it. They mailed it to me. And I saw the picture and I was like, I'm not sure if it's him because I've only seen one other picture of him before. And it's him kind of, the lighting is all different. So I I called my great aunt who's in Columbus, Ohio. She's like almost 90. She doesn't have Instagram or she doesn't have a phone, like, for me to text her. So I had to send it to a cousin up there to take it to her. And she asked me, she said, how you get my daddy's photo? I was like,
wow.
oh my God, that's him. So apparently he had been in and out, and they didn't call them prison. I forget the reformatories. This is what they had prior to the prison system. Now, when you were juvenile, or I think up until the age of 20, if like he kept being in and out of it because of theft, and I don't know the reason behind it, because he ended up serving in World War I and getting married and having a whole bunch of kids. But prior to that, he was in and out of it. But they would set you up with like a trade so that when you got out, you would have actual career or a skill. So it wasn't like he was there all day. They were allowed to kind of, go out and about because he ended up getting married and all kind of stuff. It was just interesting that no one knew this information. His daughter had no idea that he had been in and out of a reformatory when he was younger. So it's those kind of interesting stories that are really cool to share with family. And
this is a whole book, Marilyn. I mean, I'm sitting here. I got my arms crossed, like just feed me more, feed me more. Okay, so you're back in Detroit, and we have Griffin Gardens. And I have to tell you, so I watched the YouTube video, which I loved so much. I cannot wait to come and visit. First of all, can I come? Like, I'm just inviting myself. Can I come?
Of course. Anytime.
It is wonderful. And, you started this garden, and the initial idea, you just wanted to bring more beauty to Detroit. And, for those who aren't too familiar with the landscape of Detroit, there's, depending on the neighborhood, but there's a lot of blight, in burned down homes and corners that can just use a lot of love and attention. But Detroit is beautiful. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful city. And so, thank you so much for sharing all of that, because I do feel like, and I know just even my conversations with Jeff and just other people and talking about like genealogy and family lineage, all of that's connected to, our journey in like this growing space. Right. And I want people to just like see like how and why, because obviously, we we are of the land, and we have a long-standing history with the land, and that's in our history, that's in our records. It's there, it's present. So let's talk a bit about Griffin Gardens. And I do also just want to, now that you've been in this space of like diving into your family lineage, like how that all like what that all means to you in this space, because you're now continuing a legacy, right? So years down the line, when people are pulling records around Maryland, they're going to see, my mom or my aunt or whomever, had this plot of land in Detroit. She fed the community. She started this. And so let's talk a bit about Griffin Gardens, your baby, which is just looks so beautiful. And I definitely just want to make that connection and just what this has meant to you and diving into your lineage, and now you're growing, you were stewarding the land like your ancestors did.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was supposed to happen. I hadn't planned on it. I had taken a sabbatical from my job. I was like, oh, I'm going to leave for a year and I'll try to figure things out. Maybe I'll come back. I'm not sure. But the plan was to take a year off from work, because it was just no way that I could be able to do the research and travel to see various family members, which I ended up doing after I had left New York. I needed that time. And so I just went out on faith, and I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I don't know where that came from. I guess I've kind of always been pretty adventurous. Just kind of being the one to kind of go away for college and then just go to New York. And it was a big deal to quit a job, because I worked so hard as a teacher at that point, it was 8 years. But it was just something in me that said, if you're going to continue being an educator, how can you continue to tell your kids and encourage them that they should know where they come from? And it's very important. You really don't know. you thought you knew, and now you see all this information. You're just like, wait, maybe I don't know the full story. So that's how I got home, because I said, well, I'll just make my base back in Detroit. I don't have to worry about rent for a year. And so I moved in with my sister, and my sister she lives in a house that we grew up in, which is right across from, at that point, it was like 4 lots that had been homes that had been demolished. And so my dad had purchased the lot in back of the house, and he had purchased that lot. And my sister and he, over the summer, they would cut it and just maintain it, but they didn't do anything with it. And so when I was home in between, going to see family, I would just literally sit and look at the land. Like, it's just, flat land, it's grass, trees, it's pretty, but it's nothing there. And so I was just like, well, what can we do with this? Does anyone have any plans for the land? My dad's like, no, this is y'all. I bought this for you all. This is your legacy, your inheritance, and y'all got to figure out what you're going to do with it. So I was like, well, maybe I could build a house on this land.
Oh, can I pause? Can I pause you real quick?
Yes.
Dad said this is your inheritance.
Yeah.
I just, your inheritance. Okay, let's keep it moving. Tell Dad I said, hey, I saw him in the video.
Okay.
Man, I love that. This is your inheritance. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, maybe I can build a house. I've always had this vision of a dream house. Nothing too big. Like, I've always envisioned that it's like a very Southern style house with the front porch that wrap around like that. I didn't envision anything on the inside except this porch that wraps around, or at least it's the front porch that can have the rocking chair or the swing, and it has a nice garden in the front. Like, that was just my vision. But after consulting a friend of mine, he was like, it'll be way too expensive to build a home in the city of Detroit. He said it's way more expensive to build here than like in New York City, because of the lack of contractors that exist. And also it would have been hard to find a bank that would give me a loan, just because of where the cost of housing is, how it is in Detroit now. So it kind of discouraged me, but I said, well, that's okay. Let me go to plan B. What else do I want to do? And I was like, a garden. A garden. And so I was already following a nice amount of people, but women in general, that were either growing plants indoors or outdoors. So I always was like connected to seeing different gardens, different styles. But there was one account that I saw at the time, and I think her name is Shavonda. She's an interior designer. She has an interior design page, but she just started another page at that time called the Cottage Bungalow. I think that's the name of it. I'm not sure, but it's something like that. And just her vision of like her garden, it really inspired me. So that's when I started doing the research for the garden. And then everything kind of just fell into place. Once that idea was like birthed into me, I just hit the ground running. And that actually coincidentally happened when I said, I'm going to stay home. And when I decided, that's when COVID hit.
Everything in divine order. I promise you. I promise you. Okay, well, we're going to talk more about Griffin Gardens, but we are going to take a very short break and we'll be right back. HelloFresh offers convenient delivery right to your doorstep for easy home cooking with the family. With a variety of delicious options made available, you'll feel super duper confident in breaking out of your recipe rut to try new things. And since HelloFresh is committed to making fresh, delicious food available now more than ever, they have taken extra steps to keep its employees and customers safe, including no contact delivery, tamper-proof packaging, and team member wellness checks. Head on over to HelloFresh.com to start planning your next meal. You're listening to Perfect Day, produced by Artists Authentic. For more of Authentic's work, visit allornothingstudios.com. All right, so we're going to hop back in. So, Marilyn, again, everything in divine order, and it's, with the pandemic and environmental factors, political factors, I'm excited that everything has just been, again, just been in divine order and things that you haven't even planned, like at all. And so again, I am coming to visit the garden because I want to see, but I do want to go back to, I had paused you earlier and I said, your dad said, this is your inheritance. This is what you do what you want with it. Right. And so you decided to start a garden. And so with that in mind, what does that mean to just going back to his words, going back to, you studying your family, history and genealogy and, pulling that all in, like, what does that truly like mean to you? Because when he said that, he meant it, this isn't just a plot of land, just to like, all right, have fun. When he said, this is your inheritance, like he meant that. And, we are, as Black people, we are just natural stewards of the land. And obviously Pops knows that, so as you are out in your garden and you are, planting these beautiful sunflowers, which I saw, and, just really just bringing beauty to your neighborhood. Like, do those words just continue to resonate with you as you tend to your land on a daily basis?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think as I'm getting older and especially doing the genealogy and being back home and being in the garden, I often think about legacy. And well, so I don't have any children. And so, it's like, if you have children, it's like you're looking at your legacy. You are raising your legacy, and they're going to, carry on the family and things like that. And so, since I don't have any children, I really look at the garden as something that I can leave behind for if I have children in the future. You never know. But I can still leave behind for my nieces and nephews. And it's once I got a nice little sign to put in front of the garden. And it was like, once I put that in front of the garden, I was like, this is ours. Like, this is
it's official. Well, it was official when it was purchased, but I saw that. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful sign too. I love it.
It was like, this is my family's garden. And it's just every day being there. And, once I kind of got started, at first, I don't think people like my parents or my family, I think they were just like, oh, okay, she wants to build a garden. But I think as the garden started to develop, they started to see like, oh, okay, she's really serious about this. And, she's growing this and growing that. And so over the summer, everybody kind of started pitching in. My mom would come there and help me with different things, getting the weeds out and watering. My dad, he will always cut the grass. And my sister, she started to come by and help. And so it really felt like, okay, this is the family. This is the family land. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. And the land ownership for Black folks, that's a whole nother thing. And that's just the other importance to it, that ownership, and that we own we own a piece of land, we own land. And so the other thing that I wanted to point out, I know I keep talking, and for those who keep asking, what video is Melissa referencing? So Marilyn has this wonderful, wonderful YouTube video that you can find. We'll shout out her social media handle in just a bit. And it's pretty much like a welcome to her garden. And so when you started the video, there's this guy who's like speeding by on like his bike or whatever. And he's like, yo, like, nice. And Marilyn's like, you got to come visit. Like, you got to come in the garden someday. Like, you got to come visit. And I love that, and again, for those who know the landscape of Detroit, I mean, it's like any other city that has its, food insecurity, issues and issues of, all the systems. Right. And so I just love it because there's so many folks out in Detroit who are, getting these plots and getting these corners, and they are planting beauty and awareness and all the things that you wanted to bring to your neighborhood. And so when I saw that guy and he was just like, yo, this is what's up. Like, I love that so much. I was like beaming. How would you describe your relationship to the earth?
So that's a great question. So I remember before I even started, like before I even broke ground, so to speak, I remember consulting Jeff because, Jeff has his own garden. He knows a lot about gardening and, medicine and things like that. I remember consulting him just about how I should start, like as far as what I should plant, how I should go about it, because I wanted to get the land tested. Because as far as I know, no one has grown food on that plot of land because that used to be the front lawn. And that house is, I think it was built maybe in the 50s. So, maybe prior to the 50s, they were growing on it. But as far as I know, it's been grass. And so I wanted to get it tested, but then COVID hit. So everything was shut down. So Jeff, he said, plant cover crops. He said, because before you even think to take something from the earth, you have to give to it first. And that really kind of that kind of really helped me as far as how I moved within the gardens and how I look at. I mean, I've always respected nature, but that also just gave me a different perspective. I think we can be so quick to just take, and then maybe in between we'll add some amendments to the soil. But just thinking like, this is a relationship, that we should have with Mother Nature. And so just thinking like that's something simple to do is just plant cover crops. And I didn't plant anything in those beds. Those beds for the whole year just had cover crops where it was able to, add nutrients to the soil and help break up the soil, so to speak, and whatever else that cover crops do. I'm not, I am not a master in it at all. I'm just learning as I go along, but I know they're really good for various reasons. And so I would say being out there, it is just, I'm seeing how connected we all are just to nature. I mean, land and nature, you see the insects out there, they just having a good time. They just making love with each other,
Oh, they making love. They are making love.
I mean, it's just nature's happening. Life is happening all the time in the garden, and you just see the relationship between the insects and the plants, and the role that I have is just helping it all along and hoping that when it's time I can take from it, but knowing that I still have to give back to it. So it's a very symbiotic relationship. We're all sharing, things together. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Cause I never, I've never, that good old Jeff. Good old Jeff Edwards. You gotta I mean, that he's a teacher. He's an educator, okay? He's like you gotta give to it first. Because it's so easy to get on a plot of land, right? Or just land in general, and you just want to start drilling away. You want to find the water, you want to extract, and she's already bothered enough. It's like, what are we feeding her first? Right. What are we giving her? And so I mean, to me, it's just another representation of how nature works. Right. And so that is beautiful, beautiful. Marilyn, as an educator, I think you probably, you spoke to this just a little bit earlier, but as an educator, do you feel it's like that you also have like this added responsibility to really to teach kids about nature and the how to grow food and to really instill the principle of self-sufficiency? Do you feel like you have to like really take that on as an educator and working with youth? Do you now feel like that's like a responsibility that you need to take on?
It's definitely in the back of my mind. Like how can I introduce this to my classroom? I haven't done it yet. So I teach social studies. And so this is my first year actually teaching at a high school. I had taught in middle school for 8 years. And with COVID, I've just really been going back and forth to like how I want to teach and what things I want to teach. I mean, at my other school, I had a lot of autonomy. My principal pretty much let me create my own curriculum. And so my curriculum was based off of the kids that was in the class. So I had Dominican kids. We learned about Dominican history. I had, Black kids in my class with my Black history. I mean, everybody that came in that class, I tried to incorporate something from their history. So I say all that to say that's something that I've been doing with my kids now. So, that quote that you mentioned that Jeff that he had said on your podcast before, I was listening to that episode, and although I had already did it before with my kids, it struck me even harder that like the first couple of months. I had my kids like do their family tree. So that was like our first unit was, who are you? And before it was just kind of the basic, like, what's your race, your nationality, your ethnicity? How can you tell? And we would kind of go from there. But this time we added on. So I'm like, you got to know your birth story. How did you come to be in this world? Who was in the room with you when you were, when you came into this world, right? Who named you? Why'd they name you that? Do you have any siblings? Just different things so they'll know like how they came into this world. And then I had them do a family tree. So they had to interview various family members on various things like where they're from, when were they born. And so that has been a way that I've been incorporating my genealogy into it. I have yet to figure out how I'm going to incorporate the nature aspect, only because I have yet to do the curriculum that was given to me. Hopefully no one at my school hears this podcast.
It's a safe space, girls. It's a safe space, but I can't guarantee nothing.
Right. Oh, because now the curriculum, not curriculum, I'm having a blank right now. The unit we're on, the unit we're on now is I'm having them research a particular city, and I'm teaching them how to like research before they travel somewhere, how to book a trip, how to create a budget. So I'm doing like the things that I feel like kids need to know, as opposed to teaching about the Emperor of India. I mean, I get that that's really important, but like, I'm trying to teach them about the world around them. Like, there's more than just your city. Your city is important, sure, but there is an entire world that exists beyond where you live. And I want you all to have an idea about this world. I want you to be able to understand how you can travel to see this world, what it takes. And my kids are already like, man, shoot, I ain't gonna be able to eat when I get them be eating sandwiches. I'm like, yeah, because you gotta be on a budget. You have to learn how to budget your money. So that's a long-winded answer to I have yet to incorporate the nature aspect, but with the garden, I do want to at some point have kids come to the garden, because I want to learn how to raise monarch butterflies, and I want kids to be able to experience that too. So I guess stay tuned.
I love that. Full transparency. I love it. I appreciate your truth. And this is wonderful. There's so much more to like learn from you, Marilyn. I wish I had like another 2 hours. I mean, I do, but just not right now. Folks will want to listen to us for 2 hours. But no, this is really great. I look forward to meeting you in person one day and coming to Griffin Gardens and just, just seeing what you got going on. And I will say before we wrap up, I have a couple of rapid fire questions for you, but what do you look forward to growing in your garden once you're in that space of, after giving to the land? Like, what do you look forward to growing? Like food wise, like vegetables and stuff. Do you have like a lineup or anything?
Oh yeah. Listen, I got the whole list. I don't know if we have time for it all.
Girl, give us a few. Give me good 5, 6. Give me good 5 or 6.
At the top, all the stuff that I grew a lot of stuff last year, but I just grew them in raised beds as opposed to the actual like soil, which is what I plan to do this upcoming spring. So, just at the top is, kale, lettuces, tomatoes, peppers, black eyed peas, and collards. That's just like the top 6 I'm looking at on the list. My goal is to be able to sell them within the community, because I was just giving them away for free last year. People in my neighborhood would come in like, look, I'm about to make some dinner. You got some tomatoes, you got this. And I'm like, yeah, go get you some herbs, whatever. But this year I want to sell it at like, a very discounted amount, just so that money can go back into Griffin Gardens, because I'm, just completely financing it myself. And I would like it to be, regenerative, where it's like, we sell some stuff and it goes right back to the garden. So, that's just veggies, but I have a whole list of like herbs that I want to grow. I have a few friends who are into like holistic medicine who reached out and was like, listen, if you plant some stuff, we definitely like to support you and buy the stuff, and we can use it for our products. So that and flowers. I want when you walk in there, you feel like you're in the hood botanical gardens. Like we should have that. You shouldn't have to go downtown or wherever to see something like that. It can literally be in the neighborhood, and like that's my goal.
I love that so much. Oh my goodness. You are so right about that though, Marilyn. I remember like, let's just say like good 10 plus years ago. Not even that. Let me not even throw any time frame on it. I just, would travel different places and I love botanical gardens and I would, let me go to, the convention center in Miami and visit botanical gardens. Let me go to Brooklyn, botanical gardens. And you're so right. You should be able to step outside of your neighborhood, walk around the corner, whether you on, Adam Clayton, whatever, Harlem, wherever, and just see an entire oasis. Yeah. Our community should be afforded not even that opportunity. It just should be there because every other neighborhoods, have the beauty and the greens and stuff like that. But that was just spot on. Thank you for saying that.
No problem.
Thank you. All right. So Marilyn, where can folks find you at on social media?
So on Facebook, you can find Griffin Gardens at Griffin Gardens on Facebook. On social media to follow Griffin Gardens, it's from my original plant. I used to have like a page just for my house plants, and I just transitioned, but I didn't want to change the name. Just too much work.
I understand that.
So it's under my little green space. I know it doesn't go with Griffin Gardens, but that's where I post things about Griffin Gardens on Instagram. So.
And that's okay. It all works together. My little green space. Go check out Marilyn. All right. So before I let you go, I got just a few rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready for me? Because I gave you the heads up about these.
You did, but I really didn't look because I feel like if I did, I would have been really nervous. So I'm like, let me just go ahead and just go off the cuff. So I'm ready.
Okay. All right. What is your favorite veggie or fruit?
Okay, so veggie, I would say, I don't know, would you consider potatoes to be a veggie?
Why not? Whatever. I don't care. Because I love potatoes. Sure.
Classifications like, well, that's not really it's like, okay, I don't know, but potatoes. I love potatoes. I love potatoes baked, au gratin, sauteed, roasted, fried. Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm with you. Okay. So we're going to get into your flavor profile. Sweet, spicy, sour, salty, savory, or bitter?
I would say sweet and salty.
Okay.
I love the combination of both together, like in a meal, like a savory meal, but that it has the sweet and the salty together.
Y'all love how Marilyn's giving me all this context, and I told her rapid fire, and she giving me all this context. I'm joking with you, girl. I love it. I love it. Nobody can ever do these straight, not even myself. All right. So, last artist or podcast you listened to?
Ooh, okay, I'm not even gonna lie. The last podcast I listened to was yours.
Hey now.
I love your podcast, and that's one thing I didn't get a chance to share. I would be in the garden with my headphones on, listening to your podcast, and I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, people who are listening and follow you know how amazing it is. But as a new grower, just to hear all these amazing, people who are in the agricultural space, it was just inspiring every time I listen to it. So definitely that for podcasts. Music, too many to name. I
said the last artist. So who was the last artist? Like maybe an hour ago.
Oh, so this morning, I'm like a DJ to my students when they're doing independent work. I always play music. So today's music was My Life by Mary J. Blige, and then I played the original by Roy Ayers.
Oh my goodness. I love you. And I know Jack is in the background like, hell yeah. Okay, I love it.
Soundtrack.
Yes, MJB, that's my girl. My Life, that album. Okay, I digress. All right. Last question. Who are you rooting for these days? So this is kind of the play off of my girl Issa Rae. I'm rooting for everybody Black, but who are you rooting for these days? Who we want to see shine?
I'm rooting for these kids.
Bet.
They're going through it. They are going through it. It's tough, especially because I teach in a performing arts school where the kids are used to being very active and artistic and having to be stuck doing virtual learning. It's detrimental to a lot of kids' spirits right now. So I'm that these kids are able to push through, and that, we get a chance to get back into schools as soon as possible when it is safe, so that they can start thriving again. So I'm rooting for them.
Thank you so much for sharing that and sending positive vibes and energy to our students and our kids, our youth, because it's real out there. So this has been lovely, Marilyn. I appreciate you again. Thank you all for listening. Have an amazing day and peace. Thanks for tuning in. You can catch today's episode on fullserviceradio.org, as well as iTunes and Spotify. Be sure to follow Food Talks in Color, that's just the letter N, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter for all updates. Are you an edible activist? Sure you are. Come join me on the show. Just shoot me a DM on the gram or connect with me at foodtalksincolor.com. And if you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, let's connect. Peace and blessings. And remember, in the words of Baba Tariq Adunu, there is no culture without agriculture.